Hello and welcome to the latest in our series on the IBM Cognos Proven Practices. This time we're going to be looking at the IBM Cognos TM1 Feeders document. So this is quite a large topic, it's quite a large document, it's got a lot of very good information in there. Again, we're not going to go through these line by line, it's kind of shining a light on the IBM content to show that it's available, things that you can be looking at. I've generated a TI process which will give you all of the cubes and necessary information to follow along this document. I'm actually only going to point out one or two areas which are useful in here in the main. So here we go, without further ado, let's get on with it. So this is ultimately going to give you an idea of why we would use feeders. So essentially we can store large amount of data, huge amount of data. So this particular example here is something in the trillions of data points, and so if you calculate every single value, it's going to be monstrous. So we'll use rules and feeders to define smaller chunks of the data and to only perform calculations on those where we know that we need them to. So there's a lot of good information in here, inputting how skip check works, and essentially switching on the sparse consolidation algorithm. Then it goes into a little bit of information about under and over feeding. So we're going to look in a very basic sense that we have 7 methods that they've got in this documentation just to determine how to tell if a cell has been fed. So I'm going to have a look at my cube here. What we've got is for method 1 actually is for visually inspecting the rule. So actually let's have a look at this example here. So we've got the skip check statement here, and we're saying that element A star B is equal to, at the end level, element A times element B. So from a feeding perspective, we generally speaking will try and reverse the rule, and we can see that element A is implies that if there's a value in element A, it will imply that there's a value in element A star B. So given I've been using TM1 for a while and I'm familiar with writing rules and feeders, I can see visually here that then we've got a risk that if there is a value in element B and no value in element A, then we might have a conflict, we might have an issue where we're not processing this correctly. But if we're doing the sort of stereotypical price time quantity type of situation, then we might think that, right, if A is quantity, then we only ever want to calculate it when there is a quantity, because there is always going to be a price. So that's one method that I'll definitely be using. That's usually the first method, because once you write it, that's what you're doing. Then as we go through, then I'm going to then visually check these results. So we can see here that at my end level, Jan, February and March are all calculating as I expect them to, but my consolidation is not calculating at all, it's not working as I expect. So that for me is a trigger or warning that then your feeders may not be operating as you expect. So that's my second point, to then check whether we've got that. So method 1, check whether you know that the elements are doing it right. Method 2, check the calculation results. If they're still not right, then yeah, we've definitely got something going on. And then method 3 is checking for zero suppression. So this is probably my most common method. Zero suppression, if my element disappears, I definitely know I've got a problem with feeders. And then I suppose fourth method that I would use more often is to check in the feeders option. So this is to be used with some caution, just in case you are looking at an end level, you're not looking at a consolidated level, but essentially it only gives you the information when it's not fed. So if that is fed, then they will just be blank. Now the system goes on to give another number of other options. So it then talks about if the elements are part of a consolidation, that they will be fed as they need to be. There is the potential to create an entire replication of your cube, to then just do it to test with ones and noughts to see whether it's overfed or underfed. So I personally haven't done this on a customer system, but it's interesting interesting to see it, and it's been good to play around with this as part of the examples. So if you want to do that, as I say, it's in the process, it's in the listings of cubes that we have available as part of the demo, that you can then start looking at how they would work and what that does. So in short, then it's just putting in ones where we have no value, where there's a potential overfeed because there is no value to calculate against, and then it will give you a summary of the number of elements which are overfed. We've got the potential to use the performance monitor as well, to turn on performance logging, and then we just open up the stats by cube, and that will give you a little bit more information in terms of the number of fed cells, the memory used for those feeders, memory used for the input data, total memory used. So these aren't necessarily to be used as an exact measurement, but they're a good indicator to see what those values are. And then finally, method 7 states that you can examine the TM1 server log to see when the processing of feeders have been done. So that's a bit more of an extreme example. But those are the 7 different methods which are put inside this document for checking whether you've been over or under feeding your rules. So next time we'll be looking at going through these defining the feeders section. So I'll put the link into the notes for this video, and yeah, hope you get on. Cheers.